Today's matchup. KT Rolster. SK Telecom T1. Beginning of the end. 2018 League of Legends Champions Korea Spring Split.
Welcome back, guys, to OGN's LCK Spring 2018. I'm still Atlas, and he is still Papa Smithy, and we've been sitting around for an hour waiting for the telecom war, and it is finally here. A whole lot of changes since the last time we saw these two teams battle it out last year.
It's a lot of change, not necessarily in terms of lineup, although SK Telecom, of course, have played around with theirs a lot. The big story is that because it's at the start of the season, because there were missteps by both KT Rolster and SK Telecom in Week 1, we can't sit here and say this is first versus second. It may evolve to be that both these teams are trying to get into second gear and a win over these old enemies, this rivalry that is extended through esports, the StarCraft days, most famously StarCraft 1 and StarCraft 2, and now into League of Legends. This rivalry has gone on for so long. It is a bloody one, and one team will come away with a match victory and also the confidence for the next match this week.
Exactly, this is all about momentum, and speaking of which, SKT certainly had a long one against Jin Air. If you guys are watching the series against MVP, they can still do quick games, but the 94-minute blockbuster certainly was one for the ages, and Bang did a hell of a lot of damage.
The damage numbers, we saw the CS numbers earlier. Not sure if we're going to go over all of them, but at least good reading for Bang, who on the Ezreal was doing very, very well. You remember his first Ezreal game of the season popped off as well. He will still select it if it is available here. Another fun stat to look at. SK Telecom got 6 Barons in a game and lost, Atlas.
Yes, they did. I mean, I feel like this is a stat that you don't necessarily really want to see that much, although, is that all of the Barons that they got, or all Barons combined? I don't know how many Barons really actually died in
I
that
believe
series.
there might have
Probably
been
a huge number.
7 or 8.
Yeah.
But 6 was by SKT, which is
Yeah.
a whole hell of a lot for a losing team. Of course, their frustration at going 5-man headfirst into the ricochet from Teddy, something that people who watched that series last week will never forget. And you look at the rosters, it is 3rd versus 5th, but because we only just had our first team play 3 matches, there are so many teams at 1-1, including KT Rolster and SK Telecom T1.
Yeah, Jin Air, of course, moving up to that second place after their 2-0 victory, but MVP holding strong at the very bottom of the table after our first match of the day. But like you say, middle of the pack is certainly a very far-reaching one. So, of course, KT Rolster being 3rd and SK Telecom being 5th doesn't mean much at all.
And we have equal 5th BBQ, SKT, Kingzone, and Rocks Tigers. Some big teams, some evolving teams. We don't know about the directions yet. Because there's so much parity, we can't talk about who's going up and who's going down, even between KT and SKT. But it will be kind of a watershed moment for both squads. One team will have won the telecom war, be confident at the end of this week. The other team will be staring on down the barrel of a 1-2 start to the season they wouldn't have seen coming.
Yeah, and you have to think about it in terms of what were the last matches played as well. SK Telecom losing what was the longest series of League of Legends that I've ever experienced in my entire life, and KT Rolster actually getting that 2-0 over MVP does mean that momentum is in favor of the team on your screen right now. Unfortunately, guys, Rush isn't going to make his way out for the first game of the day. We're still holding out hope, of course. It is just your general KT Rolster that we've come to know and love that have been up and down.
Yeah, the kind boy wasn't assertive enough. Too kind, couldn't get the starting roster. Feels bad, man.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Score will be there. We'll see if his smites are a bit more on point. In game 1 that KT played, he was a bit too aggressive against the Freak of Freaks and was outclassed by Spirit in that game. Next time out, he was better, but then Smeb, their new shot caller, who in the 2018 season is leading this KT Rolster over Mata, had a couple too many dive-ins. He was just a bit too greedy, a bit solo queue-esque, we said about Smeb last time out. So even though it was 2-0 over MVP, it wasn't the obliteration that we saw in the previous series from Jin Air. So still things to work on for KT.
Yeah, certainly some struggles, but if you look over the other side, which is where we're going to go right now, SK Telecom T1 coming off that loss that we were just talking about, It isn't going to be your best boy in the jungle this time. It's going to be Blank back in there. This guy's an actual jungler. Wolf going to be taking some time off, minding the bench for the moment, but he might be playing Blank duty to come in later in the series.
It's that weird point where if you missed week 1, you think, of course this is the roster, but we had Wolf in the jungle, who has played more games than Blank. Blank only played the first and second game of SKT's season so far, so we finally see him back in, trying to actually show that he can be a starting jungler. We can certainly see his value off the bench when he sees the pathing of the enemy jungler. Has done a number on score multiple times in the past, but as a starter, unproven. And Untara was also subbed out. It was Tal that played in that 94-minute extravaganza. Looking at the match history here, if conditioning is relevant, SKT definitely had the longest series to have to get over, but the players all looked in good spirits, as we noticed, walking past the booths. So we'll see how SKT look today. It feels like for both these teams, we really are no closer to understanding what 2018 KT Rolster or SKT are about. KT still had their struggles in the late game, but they haven't cemented a style. SKT have kind of had this kind of revolving door of players. You know, it feels like Wolf is now a flex, support, and jungle substitute. So we're unsure what he will do. Is Blank certainly had a good KDA when he did play.
Yeah, this tennis racket's looking well and truly in favor of SKT, but does mean that, you know, there's less sample size for a lot of these massive KDAs.
I mean, they have a big KDA because everyone kind of looked pretty good in that 90-minute game. They've had long games.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the stats are going to be skewed to SKT, but this one is well-deserved. Ever since this KT Rolster lineup has come together, they have never won a best-of-3 or a best-of-5 against SKT Telecom T1. If you look over the match history here, 2-2-1 victories in Spring, a 3-0 victory in the finals of LCK Spring, 2 more 2-1. So in best-of-3s, it has always been 2-1. And then the heartbreaker, the reverse sweep by SK Telecom to match the reverse sweep by the previous KT Rolster lineup. 2 years in a row in Summer Gauntlet, a reverse sweep. This one was for SKT, went on to make the World Final. And now we look at Blank, and you look at the names that actually populated the jungle during these matches. You see a whole lot of Peanut, and you see Peanut starting 5 out of 5.
Yeah. And also Peanut losing in both of those games, equaling the Blank 3-in-a-row reverse sweep. This was when Blank was really going nuts as well.
He was the closer, right? You have to call him the closer. It's worth noting, as you can see on your screen, that Blank has never lost domestically against KT Rolster since the start of 2017. So it is a win streak, but there is a huge advantage to coming off the bench. Not being the starter gives you that extra time with Koma. Now with Coach Bengi, I imagine Wolf will be watching with his old teammate and getting some information on how score is starting. Could come in, and then we get to look at AD carry matchup. A matchup for the ages. 2 all-time greats of the AD carry role, Deft and Bang. Numbers don't look good for Deft. It hasn't been a fantastic season for him. The Varus pick has been his most reliable. We know he can play the Cog more. We don't talk about the Vayne game where he forgot QSS was an item. Whereas Bang, it has Ezreal. Even in the defeat, the 2 games of Bang Ezreal have been a treat.
Yeah, and he almost did 40,000 more damage than his lane opponent in that loss against Jin Air as well. So having a look at score,
How cool a stat is this? It is his 400th game in the LCK, the only player to play in the first ever tournament that OGN ran, the Invitational, before even Champions was a thing, right in January 2012. 6 years later, he is back, still trying to fight, still trying to find his first title.
Wow.
But when it comes to the telecom war, the fans are going with the percentages. 72% say SK Telecom will win on this day, even with SKT coming off that famous loss to Jin Air Green Wings.
Just shows that the history of SKT always having the number of KT is well and truly in the minds of all of the fans. I was expecting that one to be a little bit closer, but I'm often one of the believers. You know, we go into these telecom wars and half the time we're like, KT has the form, KT can do this, but just never the case, especially if you're looking at last year.
Korean fans love winners, and a lot of these KT players are winners on other teams, but not on KT. So to get that extra burst, to get the fan expectation, they have to win Atlas. If they win here, they will snap that losing streak as this roster of 5 against SKT. But SKT are definitely going to be annoyed. They are coming off a loss they would never have expected. The telecom war is always its own delight. Even in a vacuum, it's massive. But at this point in the season, with both teams trying to strive to find a place on this ladder, get right up to the top, we get to start it off here.
And we're going to start it off with the Rise Band as well as we head into Champion Select. Ladies and gentlemen, Not going to be seeing that one out of Faker. His rise has been so incredibly strong, even against champions that should theoretically be able to poke him. It doesn't matter. He's standing on the enemy caster creeps, smacking your face in. Kog'Maw not going to be seen by Deft as well, of course. Has let that one through once of other teams, but he has been able to pick up the wins there.
And KT were actually banning Deft away from the Kog'Maw. They've been banning it on blue and red side, even with Deft, probably one of the most famous Kog'Maw players of all time. So. Yeah. Certainly going to find some firepower. The first pick, Ezreal, looking more and more likely. Varus, Kalista, Kog'Maw already razor-sharp focus on the AD carry pool. Deft has always said his favorite AD carry to play is the Ezreal. So that's a very likely first pick, unless KT or SKT have other ideas, and now we're really setting up the Ezreal. It seems an obvious ban, but then Sejuani is a big first pick for score.
Yeah, Tristana also raises in stock value as well as we thin this pool.
Caitlyn also.
Yeah, Caitlyn, very, very true. And Deft, KT have almost been the best Caitlyn composition team in the world. You know, they're fantastic at navigating that early game. Ezreal is going to be banned, so what is the choice going to be here?
Sejuani is a really big one. I think Tristana and Caitlyn are around similar power levels, so you don't need to necessarily do anything crazy there, so they will just first pick the Sejuani. Both Deft and Bang have their pocket picks. Twitch is a big pick for both of them when their backs are against the wall, and if they leave AD carry for second round, we're starting to thin out, Atlas.
Yeah. I mean, then we're going to get Xayah bans, we're going to get the Tristana and Caitlyn, of course, banned. Braum sticking out like a sore thumb, but Tahm is going to be there if Marta does want to try and answer some of the melee support that has been going on. I want to see Marta on the Alistar. After seeing what Wraith was capable of in our earlier series, watching Gorilla play yesterday as well, I feel like Marta does have something to prove, but the Gnar is going to be locked in. SKT not going to be able to get that Gnar Rise combo that we've been seeing so much in the LCK, but certainly strong top lane and certainly strong blind pick coming out of Tara.
Support pool, like you say, may have to be picked up here. Taric is a big popular pick, but sort of thing where if you don't have a Sivir to guarantee positioning, you can start getting kited out. And, well, we saw the Khan Jace. Smeb, but most likely going to be on Jace. Pawn has played it as well. So, chance of it being a flex pick, but expected to be Jace into the Gnar as we're going for the style picks from the past.
Stop playing with our hearts, Pawn. That's not very fair. You've already got your Jace locked in, theoretically.
He's already played it mid, and we've seen it top lane from Smeb in previous telecom wars, so they're just going for a bit of the mind games. Caitlyn and Tristana makes a lot of sense, and no one's really prioritizing Xayah, is at least a little bit surprising, given that other teams have. The Jace against Gnar was how Khan just completely obliterated his opposition yesterday against the Afrika Freaks against Keen. So we're thinking it's going to be Jace top.
But it could be a different story, though, because on Tara, we have been giving him a bit of a hard time. I mean, this guy hasn't really been a standout player. You can't look past the fact that he's 100% win rate on this champion and has a 34 KDA. Has only died once out of the 3 times that he has played this champion. So certainly will be a more difficult story than against Keen.
With counterpick, Untara has been strong. With Gnar, in general, like you say, 3-0 is great reading. He is counterpicked by the Jace. It's going to require attention from Blank on whichever jungler he's going to be visiting. Can already see a Jarvan ban. If you look at solo queue, Blank has largely been playing Nidalee, surprisingly, and also the Camille. Is Nidalee just a solo queue stomping strategy, or will he be willing to bring it into professional play like other junglers have already done in LCK Spring? That part remains to be seen, but Jarvan's definitely a bit more the norm of his picks on the side of SKT. And the Zoe respect ban is second round, but Zoe's been deprioritized, and we're just unsure whether we'll ever see Faker launching those paddle stars and hard carrying games from mid.
I know, and we've seen it so many times on stream. I'm sure you guys from home have been watching it as well, but not going to be able to see it in the LCK, at least not for game number 1 here in our first telecom war.
No Zac ban, and it is the famous pick there for Blank, but he's considering going for what he's in form with. And look at this, they will settle on the return of his Nidalee. When he debuted on SKT's lineup in early 2016, Nidalee was one of the picks. They said they brought him in for his mechanical proficiency over then the other jungler, now of course the coach of SKT, Bengi. So Nidalee here is something he's really in form with. Like I said, 11-2 in his past 7 days, but already a very different look to Blank. He's obviously used his time in solo queue away from the professional scene, training up new picks.
Yeah, I do like the answer, though.
Hey,
and KT,
look who it is.
Here we go. This is a look back to their old extraordinarily successful comps that they were running with the Galio, with the Caitlyn, moving around, taking down minion waves.
And it's what we saw just yesterday, you remember. The Rocks Tigers blind picking Galio. It's amazing that out of nowhere, no Galio priority a week ago into Galio blind picks. Any scaling matchup is strong against Galio. One of the ones that SKT used to default to is the Corki. But KT got so many of their wins through an invading jungle. You think of Kha'Zix and Galio, best friends forever. This is very much strong frontline and then AD threats. It's probably going to have to be the AP Galio that we saw yesterday from Lava, former SKT sub trainee Lava, who of course now is the mid laner of Rox Tigers. He went Proto Belt into Leandri's, into Void Stuff, full AP, and just relying on the resists you get from W and the tankiness of Galio's kit. Could go full tank, but then there are some damage concerns. Surprising to see Galio. It feels like out of nowhere, but now Pawn's doing it. You think BDD is considering it as well. The Galio meta may be back upon us.
Yeah, and it was Pawn and BDD that really were our standout Galio players as well. I was going to mention that KT made compositions like this look extraordinarily easy. It was with champions like Kha'Zix coming out of the jungle, things like that, champions that do have a little bit more damage behind them. The Sejuani is going to be different, but then Jace makes up for it on the top side of the map and is also a fantastic lane matchup. I like what KT have done, but once again, it's SKT knowing exactly what they want to do and then picking for that as well.
And the thing for KT is you like the draft. If it goes AP Galio, maybe there's enough damage from the Galio as well, but the caveat always is KT so rarely get all their chess pieces in order in the same game. In the same game where Smeb is popping off, Deft might be putting down a control ward, face checking and dying, they very rarely get everything together, but as a holistic draft, on paper, you love KT. On paper, you predict great things out of KT, but the paper gets ripped up more often than not. So let's see if they can actually put that theory to practice.
And once again, SKT look like they have a late game composition that could tear up KT Rolster as well. KT Rolster's going to have one of those early games that they've been known for having. The telecom war, ladies and gentlemen, is about to unfold. It's time to head to Summoner's Rift. Okay, we got a face check, guys. It's KT already using their flashes. Smeb's going to be taken down. And this is why sometimes you can't wait for the cheers, because there's people dying.
Yeah, score was already flashed. Smeb didn't use his flash, but went down. Fully out of context there. We also have the broadcast feeds. We have no idea what happened in the first 25 seconds of the game. We'll get a replay to you soon, but already out of nowhere, the plan starts to go awry. The early game starts to go awry. KT just tried to rush in. They W'd there. W start from Mata. They thought, okay, this will be fine. Let's back away. SKT were lying in wait. Not sort of brush that you see started on. You don't often see four-man camps, but let's remember one of those old kind of adages of League of Legends. Not right at the start, not the don't chase singed adage, but Braum's level 1 Atlas. It's one of the most famous for a reason. You face check a Braum, you die. It wasn't score, but it was Smeb. 400 games for score, the 400th game. The big landmarks for score so often are disappointing, Atlas. The finals, the 400th game. Let's see if he can rewrite history, but for now, not a great look for KT Rolster.
No, not feeling brilliant. Smeb, he's going with Summoner Airy here on the Jace this time around, and Tara getting into the lane nicely, and we'll see whether Smeb's going to be able to have the same level of performance that we saw out of Khan yesterday. Making his debut for 2018 was a terrifying thing to behold. Smeb now, see whether he can do the same.
You guys are wondering about the matchup. It is Jace's favorite matchup. It's one of those matchups where Gnar actually does smart. One of the standard counterpick matchups like Gnar versus GP, Gnar versus Ornn. I've been seeing it very commonly. But both sides know that. Ontara knows it. That's why he's not starting an offensive item. He's going for Doran Shield. Both junglers know it. So there's always this kind of prisoner dilemma of, do you gank for it? Are you there for the counter gank? What are they expecting? What is he going to do? What is they going to do? A lot of rock, paper, scissors about situations like that. So no guarantees it's just going to be Smeb rolling his face over the keyboard and taking down Gnar. It's just what it is on paper.
Well, you can see Deft and Mata are certainly playing up. They're abusing the fact that this lane is ridiculously strong in the early levels.
I mean, it's a free Caitlyn lane, which is always a happy way, as Ontara gets very aggressive with his level 3.
Yeah, heading into the Mega Gnar, and Smeb has to smack him away. That's a huge win. Blank's waiting around here at the same time, and I feel like if he could potentially land a spear, it could have been an opportunity, but Ontara is going to get exhausted, head back to mini Gnar form and continue being frustrating, but this is not the sort of Jace versus Gnar that we've been led to expect.
The extra variable of the jungler being without flash, and Nidalee was already going to be battle warding anyway. Here we go.
Yeah, Arctic Assault having to be used by a score to get himself out of the way, and Blank showing his prowess on the Nidalee that we've been waiting to see for a long time. Looking for Faker, but his follow-up damage is certainly something that you do not want to be seeing.
He's already through both potions as well. Faker knows his role. Scaling matchup. Starts with the Cull, looking for the farm only. Not a lot of threat from Galio without Sejuani helping, and now especially with Sejuani no flash, feeling great going the investment banker route.
Yep, you can see Pawn actually heading into the Resolve tree as well, so it's not going to be at least a rune page based on damage. We'll see what his build is going to show us, though.
Lava went both ways. Had a full tank Galio game, and then followed that up with the more offensive choice when he needed to. And you know, your first read on this comp is going to be low damage in the late game, physical damage only. Team comps are so hard to evaluate just because one side has Nidalee and the other side has Jace, so neither of those champions scream out for team fight.
Yeah. Tara taking a lot of damage, but Smeb as well really isn't being able to punish this Gnar the way that we've seen. A lot of it needs to go as credit to Antara, who has looked so good. Bottom side of the map continues to be a problem. Is this going to be a Zephyr Max Martyr? We know that he took it first, and we know that he's got Summoner Airy. This could be the incredibly toxic Janna we've been seeing in solo queue.
Doesn't have the Ignite this game, so you think it's probably going to be going for the E-Max.
The Storm Max, yeah.
And of course, in competitive play, the W-Max against anything other than two super melee champions would be very risky, but he's certainly going to be getting his gold generation on, just pushing up and using the W off cooldown.
So far, Deft farming out extraordinarily well. 15 CS ahead at 5 minutes into the game is nothing to scoff at.
Pushing in bot lane, expected. Caitlyn Janna, as you say, very good to lane. You get a free Janna lane because it's against the tank, so no pressure there. Also expecting the same sort of advantages early in the mid lane and also throughout the top lane matchup. We see Score coming around. This is very nice pathing from him.
Yeah, teleport comes in. The hop is going to be there, but he's running out of gap closes. The flash is still up. Antara's going to have to use it, but Permafrost comes in and Smeb just picks up the kill. Antara holds onto the flash the whole time.
He didn't really feel like he could get away. His Mega Gnar was kind of be the thing. He wanted to go for a crunch and then flash away. Couldn't get there. Makes the educated read that he would have died. So hard to really evaluate. All summoners were up by that point for Score and Smeb. If Score didn't have his flash up, maybe you go for the flash, but in the end, Antara decides he doesn't want to die to the return gank and just holds on to that ability.
Well, Marta's going to ward here. He's probably going to see Faker, who moves down. Good movement there by Deft to get out of the way of the Winter's Bite. Could have spelled his death. Cupcake being put down as Effort taking a lot of damage here. And in fact,
2v3.
2 versus 3, they're looking real good. Peacemaker's not looking very peaceful as Effort takes a whole bunch more damage. Faker below half, having to blow consumables. And Pawn's on his way down. Level 6 is there. Heroic entrance, certainly part of it. And that round of applause makes a whole lot of sense. KT, this bottom side, what have these AD carries been eating for breakfast, Papa Smithy? They seem to be facing SKT and then looking like gods.
I mean, Caitlyn is basically eating Tristana, Braum, and even the Corki for breakfast, Atlas. And the reason for why Faker was still there, he went for a roam, largely to help SKT get a preferential back. They're getting crunched in the lane. So Tristana and Braum wanted to push in and recall. Corki was trying to help push the wave. But then you say 2v3, it's almost like 1.5 versus 3 because Janna doesn't have that much lane presence alone.
Yeah,
just
true.
the Caitlyn basically hitting back, stopping there from being a preferential back. Getting a preferential back after you're losing lane that hard is a pretty big win for SKT, but they were denied it even after investing the time of Faker.
And we need to sort of talk about Deft here as well and talk about the evolution of him as an AD carry, because originally, you know, when we were seeing him in the Samsung days, he was known as that player that played very reserved in the laning phase, then was extraordinarily good at positioning in team fights. And it almost feels like he's done a relative 360 on that note, because now, when he can play forward, Deft looks extraordinarily good, but can sometimes get a little bit overly optimistic with a lot of these plays. And right now you can see it's actually paying off brilliantly for KT because he's playing with reckless abandon, but getting away with it.
Beautiful metaphor for KT really as a whole, and I kind of alluded to it earlier. So rarely can all these players fire in the same game. And then you have players like Deft who've shown he can be a laning god, and we know he can be a teamfight god. But those data points of his teamfight prowess are a couple of games in 2017 some games in China, and then largely 2014, which now is 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So when it comes to individual players, Def still has a very high tier list ranking. How good is he compared to the other AD carries? Like Teddy, for example, hard to say. His ability to team fight and lane, I would say the laning is the more reliable point. He's also on Caitlyn versus Braum and a Tristana, so it is still expected what we're seeing in this lane.
Yeah, it's just that this style of play from him has certainly been one that he's been able to pick up. Ace in the hole going to fly out. Effort. Nails it.
Let's also note something. Interesting choice of rune here from Def. He actually goes for Unsealed Spellbook, kind of a Sivir-esque approach of whatever happens in lane.
He's an inspiration fan, isn't he?
He is indeed. A lot of people are in solo queue and also in competitive play, but able to teleport back to lane and push is what he's doing here. Push style, and even with a stronger laning phase than Sivir, so that's definitely going to help that CS lead grow larger and larger.
Well, speaking of CS lead, there isn't one on the top side of the map, and Tara's been playing this one out extraordinarily well. Actually pulls ahead. Still getting the push advantage is Smeb, but otherwise, certainly hats off to Antara for being able to play this one nicely. Good warding, KT's jungle. Just package has to be respected.
Smeb is building purely for lane. You look at the enemy team, and the first item that comes to your head is not Blade of the Ruined King, given that it's very, very squishy from the side of SKT, but Blade of the Ruined King into the Black Cleaver was the build we saw from Khan, and it just destroyed the Gnar. Feels like we're going to be comparing names like Khan, Cuvée, and also Smeb quite extensively, and given Smeb had some big misfires last time out. Let's watch Score, just chasing Ontara away, trying to actually help the top lane after kind of being a non-factor with his flash down earlier.
Yeah, of course, Smeb on the Jace, very, very good at taking down these turrets, so Score creating space here does make a lot of sense. Should actually get a fair bit of work done. Not sure what they'll be able to take down in this wave. But in the meantime, Blank's going to be able to grab Cloud Drake #1. SKT losing out on a little bit of the gold there, but the movement speed out of combat is certainly going to be handy, especially with these skirmish-type drafts that we're seeing out of both of these teams.
But isn't it lovely when both teams are playing to their vision? Top-bottom side was littered with control wards and control for the side of SKT. They take the Drake. All the warding for KT is on the top side. They take the outer turret, they let the gold go to Smeb, try to get him to his Blade of the Ruined King earlier, and giving up a Cloud Drake is certainly not a big cost. The thing about when this game opens up is, especially early with turrets down, KT gets scarier, because guess what? You invade, Galio responds first from the mid lane unless the package is there, and even then, no guarantee for the Corki, and you can make proactive plays with a Galio draft better than any other mid laner in the game. So this is the point where with a longer lane, actually getting red side control for SKT in the top side is going to be very tricky.
Yeah. One thing I do want to note as well is that Faker's package, in fact, timed out. He was trying to use it top and bottom, but KT, understanding the timings, had the vision there, had it all prepped. And it just feels like both of these teams, they're thinking about exactly what could go wrong and preparing each time. It's like a game of chess. Everything's being played a few turns ahead.
Feels like the chess is definitely favoring blue side here. Almost got that second turret down, and every time Galio leaves, gets scary and scarier.
Yeah, speaking of scary, Def takes way too much damage, has to flash out of the way. Glacial Fissure not going to be in line as Blank turns up, adding to this 3v3.
Reading a little bit too much there, KT Rolster. They thought, okay, 2 turrets, 11 minutes, that'd be great, but Blank there, free damage, like you say, turning around the skirmish as Blank meets Score.
Yep, teleport's going to be back up, remember, for Deft at the same time. So if he does go back, he teleports straight back to the turret, and it's not going to be that punishing circumstance that it potentially could have been. Because KT can get their AD carry back here and continue that shove. Now with a static shiv at the same time, so...
Push, push, push.
Yeah.
That's all he's doing with a build like this. Very much about PvE, pushing down the turrets, long lanes, Galio coming in with the hero's entrance. Very clear game plan from KT, but one that worked a treat for Rox Tigers just yesterday. So the fact that this is not completely new for KT means that SKT should be ready.
Well, Effort's in trouble. Blastcone's going to get him out of there, and they've now got a man advantage. Def gets over the wall, but Marta has to be careful. Heroic entrance on top of Score, and Marta's going to be able to pick up the kill. Bang! Seizes Death, and Smeb grabs the kill. Can we get KT moving up towards inner turrets now?
This is some real rookie mistakes from SKT. Effort, remember, is still there. No Wolf in this game. They walk up, they take trades. Tristana rocket jumps in against a Galio. It's always a mistake, Atlas, especially when you're not ahead in gold. of any great degree. They thought, okay, we can delete Mata. He'd already used some of his abilities. They knew that the ultimate was down from the Janna, but too easy for KT Rolster. And now the problems of the side lanes start to get snowballed into Faker's lane.
Yeah, and I just feel like draft-wise, I know blue side certainly does have a little bit of favor when you're drafting. You can create the situation that you want, but playing on these sort of second-tier AD carries, Deft, I feel, just has so much more mastery on the likes of the Caitlyn, on these sort of B to C tier picks. And the specialization of Bang, like his Ezreal, legendary. His Sivir, fantastic. But if a lot of these get banned away, feels like KT have got the deeper pockets.
And also the level 1 misfire by Score and Smeb is not costing what is an early game priority draft. Jace into Gnar is a winning matchup. Galio clears faster than the Corki, even if he's not going to be able to really pressure him. And Caitlyn Janna needs no explanation when it comes to the Tristana lane. So despite that misfire, still able to return, still able to fire on the same cylinders, and then you add in an SKT over Pursue against a Galio Hero's entrance. This is the result, as it should be. Advantage KT Rolster.
Yeah, Abyssal Mask now done for Pawn as well. He's got to his first item. We'll see whether it starts to be slightly more damage focused at this stage. You mentioned Lava's item build that he opted in for. It didn't look like this. Certainly, Abyssal Mask does help if you decide to go for more of a magic penetration route.
A bit of a strange choice. It is because he's against Nidalee and Corki, so the magic resist getting a lot of value, but definitely not buffing up damage for anyone else on the team, short of a couple of cheeky Mata Ws and some Sejuani damage. Yeah. Again, there's no need to go the damage route, except if the game slows down, you will be outscaled in terms of damage if you're KT.
Well, speaking of problems, we've got a Permafrost coming in here on top of Blank. Score still fighting as Ace in the Hole flies forward, which is rough. Oh, Faker sidestepping that one with a plum. Smeb needing to make his way out. Slightly awkward positioning here for the Jace, but will get his way around.
No chance of a flank. Galio is keeping Gnar occupied and topside. There's no Drake for them to fall back yet, but they are getting Drake control. 55 seconds for that to spawn. The only objective that SKT has picked up so far this game has been the Cloud Drake, and from now on it seems like going to be very difficult for them to actually power down another one.
Yeah, seems like a little bit of calm before an inevitable storm. Smeb spotting out some vision, so important in this matchup.
I love that Score also has taken, a page from Umti's book. He went fleet footwork. He was supposed to be proactive this game. He's run around the map, 3 assists, did not die, had to use his flash level 1. But the plan from KT everywhere. Galio mid lane, proactivity. Sejuani with fleet footwork, proactivity. Caitlyn Janna in lane against the tank support, proactivity. It is at the cost of late game. No Aftershock. Galio right now, very low damage build. But for now, it is also complete supremacy in the early to mid game.
We'll see whether some of these item spikes that are coming in are going to help SKT out, because Trinity Force is now done, and Tara opting in for a much safer build, picking up that Frozen Mallet instead of the Black Cleaver that we see so often, but he's going to be able to potentially give a little bit more in these team fights, having the added health and the added CC to try and set up some of these kills. And I actually really like it. When you don't have as much CC on Blank, try and go for as much CC as you possibly can.
It's also a very simple story of if he goes Black Cleaver, he gets instant killed by the Jace. He just powers him down. The stats aren't going to be relevant enough. So a stacking slow and his teammate helping him out is all he can hope for. Is you can see Deft's mindset very clearly.
Oh yeah, he is angry as hell. The kind of Deft that you want to see. Hasn't had the best start to the season, especially up against Kramer. Really wasn't fun for KT fans in that first series of 2018. We were expecting KT to come out flying, and they were confident. Confidence bit them.
But isn't it fun that we have Afrika beating KT, and then Kingzone beating Afrika, and KSV looking a level above, while SKT trips down to Jin Air. We're having all sorts of scenarios where the top teams have not necessarily revealed themselves. We all have our suspicions. We all know the big names. But some of the teams that are unfancied are coming out big. And KT trying to get a 1-0 lead here. Even if they pick up the win, we know better than to give them the series. They still have never won a best of 3 or best of 5 as this roster. But you have to say, first 20 minutes, a big check mark, an A+.
Yep, feeling brilliant. Just over 3,000 gold is going to be the lead. KT looking at this Rift Herald, we'll see whether they do pick it up. Breaking open these inner turrets is more difficult, and having Shelly there available will certainly help them out. They've got the vision. They've put it down. Marta's been hanging out. You can see the vision for SKT also fantastic, understanding that they need to understand the movements around the map on the top side. I'm going to start it off.
The tanks can take it relatively fast, so no real need for any of the damage dealers or wave clearers to get involved in triple control ward. Says, hey, this is our objective, and SKT obliged by trying to make things happen bot side.
Yep, Smeb dodging out of the way of some of these, but this turret is still at full health. The Shock Blast is going to say, get out of my lane, Faker.
Thought it EQ'd a wave clear, but that's not the Smeb way. He wants to show a bit of lane presence, and Italy had backed away.
All about sending a message, Pop Smithy.
Man, that control ward line is the god tier. 5 control wards all in the river, none of them clear. That's, you know, that SKT is scared, Atlas. They don't feel like they can walk up and clear any of that control vision. Beautiful stuff from KT Rolster, and for now, SKT are going to one wave, usually taking a buddy with them, so enacting the buddy system, and then backing away and saying, well, scaling is still a win condition for us. And KT so far, pushing forward, very impressive.
Very impressively, and now they do have that Rift Herald that we were talking about, so we'll see which lane they are going to throw that one down in. Pings on the bottom side. You can see Smeb, a lot of wave clear to his name, 2 items now picked up. We're talking about item spikes on the side of SKT. Now it's 2 items for Deft. This is an accelerated Caitlyn as well. So normally you're talking about item spikes when you're hitting about 3, when you're hitting 4, but when it comes at this fast a clip before 20 minutes on the Static Shiv and the Infinity Edge, that still feels brilliant. It's mid inner turret, under fire, Effort doing the best that he can. 2 supports that are actually pretty good in this game as far as saving turrets, but Effort not having a great time as he just tanks that one up. This explosive charge is going to do some work as teleports are now having to be used by KT.
There's a lot of meanwhiles that happening here. Bot lane, Jace and Sejuani throw down the Rift Herald, but no minion wave to support it means that Untara still has turret HP. We can't see exactly the value, but doesn't end up being a massive value use of the Rift Herald.
Can't be a whole lot, but you can see the group up here from SKT might actually bite them as there's the ultimate coming out from Score. In goes Pawn, picks it up all too easily. Faker actually uses the package to escape, and that means that they lose their support and lose the inner turret.
And you see Janna also just ulting for health, actually ulting to keep them healthy as they keep rotating around. We're past 20 minutes, maybe almost on the dot, but things like Baron become more and more realistic. Blade the Ruin King, 2-item Caitlyn means they do it at a pretty fast speed. They also return to mid lane. Faker's top lane, he's had enough of this. Doesn't feel like with a no front line they can do anything. The value of Infinity Edge Static Shiv is actually higher for KT than SKT because SKT are brittle. Nidalee, Braum, and Corki aren't going to be frontliners that can take autos, whereas there is the Sejuani Galio who can tank forever on the side of KT. We're going to watch the replay. Feels like another moment where Effort's rookie status is being taken advantage of. He walks too close into melee range. Why does he get auto-attacked by Score to allow this to start stacking up with the concussive blows? Unnecessary, but a bit of nerves, a bit of rookie status, and a bit of advantage to KT.
Yeah, KT looking brilliant. I sort of want to go back to the scaling point as well, Papa Smithy, because you can see in the item build coming out of Mata, he's building towards the Ardent Sensor. He's already being able to buff Deft with the Eye of the Storm, adding that extra BF sort of damage. So we're talking about, you know, Caitlyn needing to scale for longer, but does have these other options that are going to be there extraordinarily soon. Already the shield was available, so having the crit damage and having the extra attack speed, so great. And then he's going to get charged up even more when that Ardent Sensor does come in. This is a get behind the Caitlyn type composition with, like you say, that incredible frontline.
And imagine the attack speed between 2 attack speed items and now large attack speed item in the Ardent Sensor. So it's a different take on the meta. We would have thought Redemption, right? You wouldn't even look once you saw a Forbidden Idol, but does look like, at least from the items, that it will be the Ardent Sensor in 2018. Cue the memes as we return to the game. Also Fiendish Codex for Galio. Excited to see what that turns into.
Oh, yeah.
Bit on the AP side. You can't get away with just being purely tanky as a Galio.
Does have his timepiece, so it might be a Zhonya's Hourglass to start off having a little bit of that physical defense whilst being able to go golden as often as possible. That feels a little bit more meta. We've got an Ardent Sensor and the stopwatches. Oh, feels brilliant. The perfect marriage.
Everyone's pushing up. Galio pushing Corki. Top side, Jace pressuring Nara as expected.
A 1-3-1 though, once again. I mean, it was Jin Air making it work earlier on today. Now it's KT. making it look pretty good.
Okay, but think back. KT played a lot of this style last year, but where did it go wrong, Atlas? It was always they took a risk too far. Someone was too headstrong, got caught, and then you back away.
This time of the game as well.
Exactly. It's not inked yet. It still is the hypothetical. KT often give chances to be caught as they transition between lanes. For now, though, they're being pretty smart.
Yeah, half the health on this turret as Effort takes a hell of a lot of damage. Needs to be careful. Bit of a boop there onto Bang, but not going to take too much, and Effort is just copping abuse left, right, and center.
It's a thankless job playing Braum against this comp. It should be noted, but I have to also mention the small mistakes that he's made that have been very unfortunate in SKT trying to get a foothold back in this game. And if KT don't offer mistakes, they keep methodically taking turret after turret, breaking the base, tricky. But backing off to Baron and knowing there's going to be no real vision from SKT, that is the calculated move when you're in a scenario like this.
Yeah, and we've spent a day, you know, in our last 2 games talking about not a lot of siege opportunities. KT have got a hell of a lot of siege opportunities. So they've got Monsoon to stand back and pick up all of their health again if they do get poked out, things like this. Like, SKT do have a lot of poke options, but it's not really going to be as helpful when Deft is going to be back at full health and then shooting from such a range, especially when that rapid fire cannon comes in.
Always holding your breath a bit in scenarios like this where Jace has to go pick up the minion wave and back away. There's still some advanced vision for SKT, so there was some chances of a big initiation coming through. It probably has to be in Tara, so their initiation is not gold standard by any means. They don't have non-committal engage like the Sejuani ultimate, so it's not that easy for them to actually force, which is another reason why playing 3 lanes is smart from KT. But KT, if they follow historic trends, always open chances. Go for an aggressive back, make some mistakes, don't necessarily dot all the I's and cross all the T's, but keep pushing forward, no mistakes yet. It leads to a gold lead of around 6,500 gold pre-25 minutes.
And you can see SKT, I mean, this is what they do so well. It's being able to continue having the vision available and the information available to them as well. If there's an opportunity to come back in this game, if KT let up at all, you know that SKT is going to be able to punish. That hasn't changed. You could see they had full information that Deft was going back. They know that Baron is not going to be taken, and SKT have an opportunity to move forward, move that ward line further up. We often talk about, you know, especially in KSV games, these teams are able to suffocate their opponents. I don't think I've ever seen SKT successfully suffocated out of a mid-game.
Sort of thing where if it happens, you really do a double take and wonder if you're watching reality or fiction. Has happened a handful of times in years.
Yeah.
Once a year is kind of when you see that sort of play against SKT. But it's a new year, and it is an SKT that came in with lower expectations after the roster change, not necessarily impressing fans who wondered where was Marin, where were the other stars, trusting in the process the way that SKT went, and we don't know the full story of how that will go. Maybe this will be another new dawn for the side of SKT, but we're still early. Effort still needs time to find his confidence, to find his bearings. Blank finds Galio, and that's no fun.
No, especially not with this Zhonya's picked up. Another blasting rod there as well, so he's going for a void stuff. He's going to have some damage as Smeb needs to be very careful. His newly built Guardian Angel doesn't want to be procced as where are we going?
Well, smartly, Smeb went forward, which actually eluded the Corki.
Well, he's going to walk into them now as Antara and Faker actually just really playing the do-si-do. They want to set up this sick flank, but are they too late? As SKT taking a lot of damage, they have moved themselves away. That flank option not quite there because just couldn't quite get into position in time. That was almost the stars aligning, but just not quite.
Yeah, no value from the ultimate there. The Glacial Prison from Score was used, but to no avail. The moment they knew there were 2 threats behind them, they're like, wait, there's only 3, let's go for it. The Score wasn't able to make the initiation stick. So Gnar is bot lane pushing out. Mega Gnar now. We might see another attempt at engage.
Yeah, in goes Score. Rocket Jump now on cooldown here for Bang, but they're able to get a lot of free damage onto this turret. You know, Deft does have that Ardent Sensor available to him. Effort once again getting abused underneath this turret. They've got the trap line. Bang, though, is making these spears hurt. So KT will have to back away.
Jace on a ward in the mid lane. You won't know about that, but this is what we've seen the Monsoon used for in every other scenario. It's just a top-up. They want to continue with the pressure.
Yeah, charging back in. There's the permafrost down onto Effort. In goes Pawn, wants to find the taunt onto as many members as possible. Goes Golden with the Zonyas as in goes Smeb frontlining on the Jace because he's got the heroic entrance for the protection. They get one pick, and does this mean Baron?
I mean, it definitely seems to in the minds of KT. They're walking over control wards. They're guarantees to SKT. This is what's happening. You don't need advanced vision. When you see that, no way for Effort to get there, but still going to be 4 damage dealers. So a risk here, teleporting onto a ward, but they're also able to spot.
Oh, spooky ghosts, really paying dividends.
Nada gets chunked by a max range spear.
Zara has to be careful, but that Naba is charging up. Faker gets chunked out, successfully escapes. Score taking a lot of damage on his way out. This is a game of cat and mouse, but this time you don't have Smeb flashing stupidly or anything like that. It's KT playing reserved, playing together, knowing that they can't bite off too much and more than they can chew.
Because they hadn't swept the ward, KT don't get an advantage from chunking out Effort. Effort dies, they don't return to the low health turret, they don't get Baron, they don't get further picks. Spotted there by the sweeping lens by Effort. They just want to kill him again.
Yep, the ultimate does come out. Pawn gets the Justice Punch at exactly the right time. Def just throwing attacks into this Braum, who survived for so long, doesn't get that last crit, and now SKT looking to follow up. They've chunked out these super tanks on the side of KT. Oh, it still just feels on such a knife's edge. You can see the gold so far in favor of KT, 7,000 or something of the like, but they're still playing so reserved, so scared of what SKT can do in these mid-games.
They're doing Baron with their junglers showing. SKT's not going to fall for this. Baron down to 6,000, but you do see that Pawn is very low.
Yep, and KT getting themselves into a 50-50 situation. They've been here before, and it has bitten them. They're not going to do it again. Mata looking to go back, wants to refill that Eye of the Watcher.
6,000 gold lead has kind of been the number for a while now. It's now not necessarily as big a deal as it was 10 minutes ago. Nothing has happened positive for KT outside of a single pick onto Effort, and they couldn't kill him again the second time. Tanky enough with just 2 items, just with the Locket really being his big purchase after the Sightstone. So they back away. They don't necessarily over-pursue, but you need to keep growing your gold lead. We have to remind the viewers of this. BBQ thought they were in an unlosable position against BBQ in match 2 yesterday, and then were just taken down the late game by double 80 carry. The double 80 carry is adding on item after item. Every back they add to their core, they get closer to 6 items, and a 6-item team fight, you look to SKT to likely win it.
And you can see that Deft actually agrees with you, Papa Smithy. He doesn't want this game to go too much longer. He's got the GA to make sure that the next team fight, he's going to be able to jump back up again. He's going to survive. He's not going to get picked. They're looking for these traps. They're looking for the bait and switch play. Unbreakable, of course, going to eat that ultimate.
I mean, it's not easy to actually use the initiation they have. Sejuani can be QSS'd or can be dodged, and Sejuani needs to be there as a conduit to Galio to initiate. It's really only Sejuani to enable the hero's entrance to be offensive. You're not expecting any sort of actual initiation from SKT. So advancing their position after the easy objectives, which here represent a 6-0 turret lead. A lot of the gold is the 6 turrets to 0, is difficult because Effort and the rest of SKT are not dying to 4 Caitlyn auto attacks like they were earlier in the game.
Yeah. It's just a frightening situation. You know that SKT capable of taking these games long. The ultimate comes in. Effort, though, Unbreakable's there. Should be able to survive this one out, and Pawn not going to be able to find any taunts. Score chunked again. Does have the Warmogs, will be able to keep himself alive. He's going to slowly but surely get him all the way back up to full health, and the pings once again onto the Baron.
If you're SKT right now, the rallying calls start. We're in a better spot. We've managed to bring it back. That's what they'll be saying. Something like a Baron rewrites that. We see the Baron started here. They see Deft. They put 2 and 2 together. Cannot complete the Baron. They just turn on to Deft.
Yeah, heroic entrance is going to be there, though. Blank jumps all the way forward, but he's going to be taken out. That's the jungler. And KT now feels so much better taking this big purple monster.
And that's why you go for the Guardian Angel. You didn't notice a flash or a heal coming out. They were happy to power it down. All right, Score, the smite's escaped you before. You need to hit it here.
This would be one hell of a steal if they do it without the smite, but he's going to be able to get it. Score in his 400th game, locks down the Baron. They kill Effort again. Buster Shot should be the disengage that SKT were looking
Teleport.
for, but a teleport's going to come in on Tara. He's running for the hills, but he's not running to his inhibitor turrets that should be taking a shellacking now with the newly invented Baron on the side of KT. The base is broken.
How much will KT try to take here? They won't try to end the game. Death time is still very long, but they can get 2 inhibitors at a minimum.
Oh, yeah. That's the teleport back as well for Smev. He had his Guardian Angel for quite some time. Tara, Mega Gnar is going to be here. Score might be taking a little bit too much damage. KT probably wanting to get themselves out now, but they successfully will do so. What a brilliant engagement, using the tasty, tasty AD carry over the wall to bait them in.
And the best engagement is one that doesn't actually require you to hit a skill shot. In the end, like you say, Deft looked too damn tasty for the side of SKT. This is after the fact. We're going to watch the replay. The smite, just enough. Level 14 there, enough to secure it at 729. Good stuff there, Score. Needed to pull that one off. That went away. The hearts would have definitely taken a couple of notch lower if you were KT Rolster. But what we missed there was Deft with his Relic Shield upgraded. Had the shield there with the Guardian Angel. For once, SKT thought they had the drop. They thought they saw what now feels like the trademark KT overextension. It was turned around on them. And now KT is even just a couple of picks, not even a team fight, but a couple of picks away from just ending the game.
And so interesting here. You can see Deft immediately sells the GA and picks up the Mercurial Scimitar. Still wants to hold on to that Relic Shield for the sustain.
You know what the best thing about that is? The GA was a confident, let's end the game soon. Selling the GA is a more confident, let's end the game before I even would have value out of the GA.
Yeah. Just genius. It's like they had that play sort of in the playbook. Sitting backstage and saying, like, look, we've got these options, these options, these options.
They got a turret that's already pretty low. That's an easy option.
Oh, hell yeah. Take that one down. The last remaining inhibitor now under fire. SKT on the ropes. It's exactly what Jin Air were feeling. The end of that gigantic game that we witnessed a few nights earlier.
All right, 3 waves of super minions propped up by another minute of Baron. Should happen here. They have Caitlyn. Should be straightforward. Let's see if KT can end.
Yep, Redemption comes in. Marta goes back up to basically full health. Deft is tanking up the turret. He wants to keep his minions alive by the looks of things. And these Nexus turrets not long for the world now. An exposed Nexus. XKT on the ropes. A game number 1 that KT have done in the past. Nexus is under fire, but it's the battle that we're looking at. Deft picks up one. We've got low health bars, and Smeb's just fighting Faker. The flash comes out. The minions are going to be enough, and the Nexus falls. KT, 9-1. Dominant early game, dominant mid game, and had all of the plays prepared this time. Nothing going to their head.
I mean, KT Rolster rolled the dice, but they rolled high. They needed 2 6s. They got pretty damn close. Atlas in the early game with this Galio, who wasn't going full AP. They saw what the Rocks Tigers did yesterday, and maybe they even had the strategy earlier, because they once again said, what got us those wins last year? It was proactivity. It was the Galio papering over any mistakes you make, with the hero's entrance allowing them to rotate first. And Nidalee basically spent the entire game watching from the brush as action happened around her. The Nidalee drop was exploited by the last rotation Galio on blue side, and it feels like the Galio now needs to be respected by any of those old offenders that played it when it was out of whack last year. SKT surprised by KT Rolster, but I'm surprised that KT were largely pretty clean in this game, Atlas.
Yeah.
The one time it looked like one of those classic KT mistakes, it was Deft just saying, I have Guardian Angel, a Galio, and the confidence of my Janna. We'll turn it around. And turn it around they did.
Just stunning. I mean, most of the time you see those situations, and I don't blame you. If you're sitting there at home and you're like, oh no, Deft is shooting over the wall. He's not going to be able to net himself into the pit in time.
Right?
Spotted by the spooky ghosts that come round the corner. And as a KT fan, we're used to this. But guys, we are going to go to a short break. When we get back, game number 2 of the Telecom War.